Got it. Got it. Talk to me about outside the store. Because again, we started in a manufacturing facility to a distribution facility to a customer warehouse or retailer warehouse to the store. Now we're already kind of back in the store again, looking for other use cases. Are you starting to see, and I'll put you on the spot a little bit. I don't know when we published the chip project. I want to go 3 years ago. I may be wrong. When did we do chip?
I think it was 4 or 5 years ago now.
Gosh, yeah, I need to just retire because I'm getting too old. I can't remember how long you've been at the lab. Can't remember what the chip project was, but the whole idea behind the chip project is literally as things move through the node. I think at the time it was leveraging either EPCIS, which is a global standard for sharing data, or blockchain. We got kind of enamored with the blockchain technology, but the real value is starting to actually send throughout the supply chain the serialized data, because we really never have done that before. They use the serialized data in each one of the nodes, but for example, suppliers and retailers for the most part aren't sharing that. Are you starting to see that trend change? I hope it does, but I haven't seen as much as I would like to in terms of real live examples of that.
Yeah, it's been slower than I think we would have liked.
Okay.
The challenge there is, I really think it's data capture, and there's not really a great way. We've gone back and forth with this, but to isolate cartons or boxes in a distribution center,
Right.
a lot of the times that's just not feasible. You have entire pallets of product that are moving through, and unless at some point in the supply chain or really the life cycle of a packed box or carton, we need to have an association of here's the unique serial identifiers for what's in this box.
Yep.
And I think that's the real challenge of it is a lot of the times there's not a great place to do that. And we've been trying to encourage and push suppliers to record that data and begin moving in that direction. But I think that's been slow. But the data capture is definitely a challenge there, because when I've got a conveyor line moving a couple 100 feet per minute and I've got 10 boxes all right up on each other, I don't know if an item is in one box or the next, and isolation becomes a challenge there. And then I think too, the other challenge is data communication. And like you said, we're really pushing for EPCIS as the data standard for that. But the methods to communicate that, there's just not a good standard protocol or way to communicate that back and forth. Like EDI is, we can't throw in a bunch of EPCs to EDI and expect that to work. So I think that's a challenge. I think it makes a lot more sense for this to start in vertically integrated retailers where they have more control over their supply chain and they can communicate that data back and forth a little bit easier. I think there's a demand for all of this, but it's just been slow to be adopted.
Which is really, I think part of the reason it's been slow is people are still uncovering opportunities to leverage it in the retail store. Oh man, I could do this and this. And so I get so preoccupied with that. But I can't remember the numbers without looking them up. But the claims and the product authentication numbers that we came up with chip were astronomical. They were huge numbers, massive amount of numbers across the industry. And everybody's talking about, I shipped 100. They ordered 100. I shipped 100. Now they're claiming that they only got 80. I got no proof. And so I just don't know what that's going to actually happen. I do understand some retailers, mega retailers, they may have 100 different doors that they receive product on. How in the world do I put infrastructure into that? Because you're not going to cycle count that. You're not going to want that, right? That's no way you're going to do something like that. So you talk about portals or tunnels or all this other kind of stuff. It's just, we haven't figured that out yet. I think it's a technology problem. And I do believe it's a data sharing problem as well.
Yeah.
So
I agree. I think it's the scale of it is a big challenge. And I think what'll drive it is the demand from suppliers for that kind of information from the retailers. Because, we see more and more suppliers tagging with RFID and they're saying what where is that value unlock for them? And it's going to become a value add for retailers to be able to communicate serialized data back and forth with their suppliers. And I think that'll be one of the driving factors for that.
I don't want to call anybody out, but if I worked for a Hanes or a Fruit of the Loom or a PVH or somebody like that, and I knew exactly what the SG10s were that left to go to whatever retailer, and they called up and go, we didn't get them all, I'd go, here's the 150 SG10s we sent. If you've read these SG10s, we aren't paying you $1. I mean, I don't know how you go about doing that, but there's a proof of delivery almost that says, I put them on a truck and the truck got sealed. That's when you took possession of them. And if you don't have them, these are the 150 or whatever SG10s. I'm not paying you $1 until you can prove to me you don't have those. And if you didn't get those, then maybe you ought to talk to UPS and FedEx because they're the ones that shipped. I don't know. I don't want to stir stuff up, but to me, this whole claims thing goes away real quick if I can prove to you that these are the actual serial numbers of what I sent, and it matches exactly what you ordered. There should be no reason why you should do that. So,
BOP's collaborative inventory intelligence technology is helping many retailers and CPGs such as Colgate-Palmolive, PepsiCo, Coty, and Duracell avoid lost sales, markdowns, and spoilage by streamlining their next-gen collaborative planning, forecasting, and replenishment process. Learn more at bops.ai.
Hey, I'm going to switch gears here a little bit. We talked a little bit before about the various verticals you have, aviation, quick serve restaurant, et cetera. And I'm not going to ask you details about this because you got more than to say, Grace, over.
I just can't answer them.
I just can't answer them. But here's one question I do have. The question is, with these new verticals kind of being stood up, are you finding any synergies between them that you could help some of these, or are things that they're learning, can they help some of the retail, for example? So that's the question, because some of these are very different. You know, the number of seat belts in an airplane is a much different thing than how many socks are in a store. But at the same point in time, you may be learning that there's a couple of things they're learning from the vertical standpoint that we can reapply for retail. Is there any examples that you got of those?
Yeah, I think one example that we've talked about a lot lately is our partnership with Los Alamos. So we're working with them, and this is public information, but they need to track some difficult to tag materials that are very important to keep track of. And, you know, I think hopefully what we'll see at the end of that is the innovation that comes out of that project would, you know, trickle down into retail, because a metal canister for them might be similar to a product that we have in a retail store.
Good point.
And so I think from like a packaging and a product standpoint, we're going to see some crossover there as far as the challenges with some of the items that need to be tagged, and some of the innovation that comes out of that. But beyond that, I mean, I think there is a lot of, you know, general carryover, but I'm not as involved, you know, closely like on the food side. I think one thing on the food side that we'll see is some of the data standard innovation, and some of the work there is probably going to cross over into the retail space as well, because a lot of retailers, you know, also have food products in their stores. And so if we have, you know, McDonald's or whoever it is tagging their product, those same standards and same, you know, methods of tagging might also apply to retailers that would be looking to do the same. So I think we're seeing cross-industry standardization in that way as well.
Yeah, and again, I don't want to get into specifics that you know, would be an issue. So if this is the case, let me know. But I believe the demo I saw at the Auburn lab at McDonald's, or it was Golden Foods, I guess, was actually putting the RFID tag in the corrugate of the box. And all they did is make a mark go, the tag's right here, right? When we start thinking about things like asset protection and protecting, because if somebody's going to steal a TV and they know it's the RFID tag, they're going to rip off that tag and throw it away and walk out the store with it, right? But if we put that tag in the corrugate, number one, it lowers the overall cost of the tag for the manufacturer, right? Number two, it potentially becomes almost a indisputable asset protection tag, I would think. So that's what I'm always looking for. And man, if Los Alamos can do Kansas stuff, then I got to quit saying we're never going to tag Kansas soup because maybe they can. Who knows? But I've always been soup and watermelon are never going to get tagged. Well, maybe they will be. Who knows? Could be. So
Never know.
I think those are the kinds of things that would be helpful, as we have these board meetings and educate with the retailers. Like, here's 2 or 3 things we learned about with these other verticals that we ought to be able to reapply. And I would imagine most of the sharing is going the other way. Here are the things we learned in retail that you guys can reapply. I'm sure that's where most of it, because most of it is in retail, but I think that's another opportunity. So we sort of touched on this a little bit, asset protection.
Mm-hmm.
I've had a couple of podcasts with Joe Cole and Randy Dunn. I've got one scheduled for this week, this Thursday, actually. Incredible amount of work that they're doing about being able to authenticate that product was theirs, that it left the store without being paid for, even recouping their merchandise because they can prove that they bought it, they owned it, it got stolen, etc. What are the other creative things we're going to be talking about is, okay, what else can you do with RFID? Any thoughts on some of the asset protection use cases? Because to me, the reason you do a cycle count once a week, once a month is because suddenly you don't have possession of what you thought you had, right? So are you hearing from other retailers, again, nothing confidential, about how they're thinking about leveraging RFID from an asset protection standpoint?
Yeah, I could sit and listen to Joe Cole talk about this stuff all day. So whoever's listening to this needs to go and listen to his podcast as well. It's far more interesting than anything I could ever talk about. But yeah, I think it's when like you said, we're doing these cycle counts. It's really a snapshot, maybe once a week or a month or whenever that is. In between that, inventory degrades. So I think looking at fixed infrastructure or points in the store where we're continuously monitoring what's going in and out. I think we have visibility into some of those asset protection use cases. And we see simple things like point of sale bypasses. Like if an item goes straight to the exit of the store without going through point of sale, maybe it gets flagged for video review and then they can go back and look at it. So I think there's definitely retailers that are looking at that from an asset protection standpoint. And then, also finding product in the field, like in these flea markets or fence stores or shipping ports or whatever it is, assuming that they're stolen goods and then tracking those back to see what stores and when they came out of those stores and being able to identify that. I think there's a compelling use case. I think for retail overall, there's just a lot more conversation now on, hey, let's focus on some of these high shrink items and figure out how we can tag those because they see the value in that visibility. And now the conversation is not turning to how do we do this? It's how do we get tags on the items so that we can track more stuff or have more visibility into this. And a lot of those high shrink items, like cosmetics items, are not currently being tagged for most retailers. So I think the conversation, OTC goods, a lot of those get stolen a lot. There's a lot of interest now in those areas in seeing how they can be tagged to unlock maybe inventory accuracy, but really looking at shrink and almost having that be the primary business driver. Not that I don't know whether that's justified or not. I don't know. But I think those are a lot of the conversations that the industry is having now. And I think there is a lot of benefit and value for asset protection that we just haven't seen yet. And it's very interesting to see what these retailers are coming up with.
Yeah, very, very true. And how they address that with their customers.
Right.
I'll tell you this brief story. It has a point, but as you know, my son's a market asset protection manager. When he was a store asset protection manager, he was actually back in the toy department. He saw a guy literally climb up on the bike rack where the bike racks are, get a bike down, wheel it out the automotive exit, right? And we thought that was cool. That was strange. I know he didn't pay for it. He literally then my son walked very quickly to the front desk, and sure enough, the guy comes in the front door. and goes, my wife bought this for me 2 days ago. I don't like it. I don't have the receipt. I just want to return my money. Okay. And the lady, oh yeah, happy to do that. I'm not even tell you what retailer it is. And he go, happy to do that. And my son's like, excuse me, were you not just back there in automotive and bicycles? Did you not just grab that bike and go through the automotive area? Oh, no, it wasn't me. I go, really? Because I'm pretty sure it was you. It was your bike. It was I got you. And he goes, crap, you got me. What are my options? I go, well, you got two choices. You can leave the merchandise. Thank you very much for returning it to us. Or we can call the cops, whichever way you want to do it. No, I'll leave the bike. I'm out of here, right? But if you know that particular item was bought because you have a serialized item and it leaves the store, you more than happy give their money back. But if you know it left the store and never went through a point of sale, you have an opportunity to question them and say, I don't know how you do this, without offending people. If you don't have a receipt, we're not giving your money back. Period. Right. In order to do that, Matthew, you've got to be able to capture that SG10 at the register. That to me is the unlock the industry has to figure out, because various fixed readers don't do it, right? The little flower pot readers don't do it because the bike or the television or whatever is going to be in the cart. And so it's not going to be on the scanner. So that to me is what we figure out when we start to link the SG10 at the register, whether it's through RFID or through a barcode or GS1, Sunrise 2027 and the exit. Now we're talking about accountability. We know that item was never bought. Just like Lowe's is using Project Unlock for. If you don't scan that item, it won't unlock the tool and you can't use it. So very creative things that people are really coming up with. Well, Matthew, I want to wrap this up by a question, which is, okay, if you had an opportunity to talk to new retailers or CPG suppliers that don't even know what Auburn is, because guess what? There's still people out there who have no idea that there's an Auburn RFID lab. And for two reasons, how can you help them? And number two, what are the opportunities for the some 100 students or so that you have now working in the lab? Because, and Justin always says all the time, take a student home with you. Those kind of throw the ones. But part of this is you've got 100 students that are learning about RFID in a real live environment. You don't have to teach them about RFID. If you're going to start up an RFID program, hire one of these students who absolutely understands it. So two things. Number one, how does people who are not part of the Auburn RFID get involved with it? Number two, how do you get to learn which students are potentially available for adoption or hiring or whatever you want to say? Because I think there's a real opportunity to take advantage of that.
Yeah. I think the first one, you can reach out to us. You can find our contact information at our website, which is, I think, rfid.auburn.edu.
Okay.
So you can find all the contact info there. And, if you're a retailer, things that we outlined, making sure that you're using the right RFID tags, making sure that you're aligned with the rest of the industry, making sure that your suppliers are compliant, that's really what we focus on. And also driving just the general business case as well. So reach out to us, contact us there. And then for our students, we push job postings to our students all the time. So we've got sort of an internal channel for that to push those through. So again, you can head to our website and contact us if you have a job posting, and then we'll share that, or an internship, or anything like that. Like Mike, like you said, we've got 100 students and we've got so many that graduate each semester, and they really do have that real world experience and just experience with RFID that really no other student is going to have unless they've done some sort of a hands-on project like that. So I think
you've got different teams, right? So you've got sort of, I don't know what the team's name is. I'm sure I'll screw this up, but you've got some real heavy duty engineering types that really understand how RFID works from a technical aspect. You got some people that are used to doing basically store audits, so they understand how the stores work and how they leverage RFID, et cetera. You have an analytics team. What else am I missing? You got different buckets of people that are doing different work. So it's not like every student is interchangeable. If you got somebody who you want a very heavy duty engineering project, you're probably talking with those folks rather than the people who've been doing store audits, right?
Yeah, we've got all sorts of students, and the background, like their majors, they come from all the different colleges in Auburn. So we've got like flight majors, we've got a few of those. So if anyone's looking for a pilot, we've got plenty of those.
Nice.
And then all sorts of computer science, engineering, data analytics, business. It's a really diverse background of students. And so, whatever positions are out there, we've probably got a student that would fit that one way or another. And a lot of the times, honestly, they've got their choice when they're graduating. They're like, okay, which job do I want to pick from? Which is a great problem to have.
Yeah.
That they see the benefit of the work that they're doing through that. So I think it's really gratifying.
Well, it gives the companies real life, especially if they do an internship or something. They're a known entity coming in. They know them. They've done the work. It almost becomes almost a given that they're going to join the company at some level and may be involved with some kind of inventory management or RFID or whatever that happens to be. Matthew, you want to wrap this up? What, and this is my favorite question. What's on your mind that I didn't ask? Anything hot that's going on? You go, I wish you would ask me about that, or any other kind of closing comments that you might have.
We've covered a lot of it.
Okay.
I will say one of the closing comments is, and we get asked this a lot by retailers, is where do I start? How do I do this? And what I tell them is start with what's easy. Start with what's been done. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. You don't need to go and try to figure out how to tag the untaggable. But the path has been paved for RFID, and I think it's good to start with that path that has been paved and with what you can do, and then progress from there. So I think closing comments, that's my one word of advice for any retailer that's out there. Don't bite off more than you could chew. Start small and then grow from there.
And just so we're clear, when you say smarts, what's been reapplied, a given is apparel, right? Apparel is pretty much all saturated. When you say RFID to an apparel supplier, they don't look at you like, what the heck is that? Let me get back to you. Let me know what it is. Number two, doing a clear cycle count with a handheld device to incorrectly update your on-hands. That's like jack standard. That's like the basics, right? You can do a lot of stuff from that, but that's really what you're talking about of don't go off and try and figure out how you're going to do, paint cans. Start with things that we know are pretty mature and people have been doing it for a long time. So,
yeah.
Well, Matthew, thank you very much. I know you're traveling today. Appreciate you, taking time out of your busy schedule. Thank you for everything you've done. And we just we'll continue to stay in touch every 6 to 12 months and find out what's new, because usually you guys are at the forefront of what's new because you're working with a lot of retailers and suppliers. So one more quick thing. You've got a board meeting coming up, I think the middle of October. Yep. What's hot on the agenda from a retail perspective at the board meeting?
I haven't even seen it. Now, I think what we're trying to do in one of the things that's been requested is telling success stories from the industry. Okay. So I think we're really going to try to focus on that, looking at what has been accomplished, what different retailers are doing, and then hearing from their perspective. So I think that's what I'm excited about.
Love it. You're going to host a panel. I can tell. You're going to host a panel. I got it.
Maybe. We'll see.
Maybe. It could happen. It could happen. Matthew, thank you very much. Have a great week, and we really do appreciate it.
All righty. Thank you, Mike.
Right. Take care.